Welcome to the Strength Coach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Joe Lego, and here we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Strength Coach Experience, episode 8. Today, I want to welcome Justin Topa, right-handed pitcher with the Brewers, who is currently in the taxi squad there in Milwaukee, and a friend of mine, and, I coached him in college. Justin, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm happy to have you on here, and thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a long time coming, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man, it's been a while. So, you're down there, the guys are playing everything. Why don't we start off with how you started, how you got involved in baseball, started playing from a young age, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think like any kid, start playing t-ball, and I kind of just was attracted to the game through my dad. He was a big baseball fan, and it certainly helped that in my hometown in Binghamton, New York, we had a AA team for the Mets. So we would go to all the games. It was close by our house, and yeah, I think that's just kind of how I started. I watched a lot of baseball and then kind of just fell in love with the game from there. And that led into playing in high school. And fortunately, I was actually a bat boy for the AA Mets for a few years when I was in middle school and early in high school. So I was around those minor league guys for a while. And that's kind of when I really decided that baseball, I would like to pursue it as a professional, and certainly try to get there after college. But I think at the time, in middle school, high school, you just want to play at the next level, whatever that might be. And for me, on the junior varsity team, I was like, okay, well, now I want to be on varsity, and then we'll see if college is even an option. So that's just kind of just playing in the backyards with my buddies growing up. We'd always have some tennis ball games, and hitting them off the neighbors' houses and stuff. So it's kind of how it started.
Yeah, I think that's how we all grew up. I mean, same thing, we used to have a little baseball field here, hitting tennis balls in the woods, and, it was real easy. And then as the competition gets harder, you realize, your friend's not on the mound and it's not a green tennis ball. So,
Right.
But, as the competition raises, as long as you can, kind of raise with it or, change your mentality, usually be okay. So after high school, where did we go after that? Where was the next stop?
LIU Brooklyn. So I was introduced to LIU and through actually Derek Stupsky. He's a neighbor of mine growing up. We went to high school together. So
another LIU there.
Yeah, exactly. So Derek, he was a year older than me. So he signed his letter of intent in his junior year. And I never thought I would live like in the city or even go to school in the city. I wasn't looking at schools, outside of maybe like an hour or two of Binghamton. And then I went to a showcase, and that's where caught the eye of Craig Noto. And I guess you'd say the rest is history from there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for those who don't know, you were an infielder before you went to LIU.
Yep. Yeah. I thought I was an infielder. That changed quickly once coming to LIU. But no, I think it goes back to growing up in New York. I think that any kid growing up, close to New York City, playing middle infield, everybody thought you were Derek Jeter. So that's kind of where my mindset was in high school and stuff. And then turned into a pitcher pretty much after I signed with LIU. That was my first full year pitching. Was probably my senior year. I threw about 7 innings my junior year, signed my national letter of intent with LIU, and threw about 70 or 75 my senior year. And then that fall came to LIU as a full-time pitcher.
What was the transition like, coming from high school where you predominantly played infield, and then kind of getting into a full pitcher's role, if you will, and as a senior in high school, and then going into LIU, as a full-time pitcher?
Yeah, it was a little different. Obviously, playing infield, you're playing every day, and that's kind of how I grew up with baseball. Was playing multiple games and playing all 7 innings at the high school level, and obviously 9 in the college level. But when I got to LIU, it was a little bit of a transition just because I was still very new to pitching and just, I guess, the art of pitching. I was probably more of a thrower than an actual pitcher. And my senior year of high school, even like our area, we didn't have a ton of kids that threw very hard. Derek Subsky's year, that team had a lot of guys that threw hard. But in our area, if you were, mid to high 80s, like you're throwing it pretty well. And so when I got to college, it was kind of more of an eye-opening experience to say the least. But no, it was a good transition. I think that the staff made it easy for us incoming freshmen to get the concept and the daily grind of a pitcher down to a pretty good science. And obviously as a freshman in college, you're focused not only on athletics but also in the classroom. And so it was like a little culture shock. But from the baseball standpoint of it, I think that the staff did a great job, and it was a pretty easy transition from, especially coming out of the fall and then jumping right into it in the spring there. But yeah, it's just a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's a full other thing, and I was there, you got there before I did a little bit, but, a whole different place at LIU,
Right.
For those listening that don't know, it's in the middle of the city, you're literally in the city, it's not on the outskirts or anything. Like, you're right there. You walk out of the front campus, there's an Applebee's and a subway station and a 7-lane highway, and then there's the Manhattan Bridge. So yeah, that's a big transition. I mean, I live in upstate New York as well. And when I went there, I was terrified. I mean, I went there and I was like, oh my God, this place is crazy, but I think it helps you build. And personally for me, playing baseball there with that field in the back, surrounded by everything, it was, quite a phenomenal journey. So as we go through, let's go through freshman to kind of sophomore year, what are some of the things that you learned, and what are some of the mindset or the mentality that you took from as an infielder playing every day to kind of transitioning to a pitcher as you went through your sophomore year?
Yeah. So that first year, I think the mindset thing is just understanding how pitchers attack the hitters. I think that was the biggest thing is trying to figure out, how to throw to certain guys. And you're learning scouting reports, you're learning, how to pitch to a certain team. They might have a lot of speed guys and control the running game, that type of stuff. So it's kind of just taking that mindset as a hitter and kind of flipping it and being like, okay, like, what is this guy going to try to do to me if I'm a hitter? And now on the flip side, as a pitcher, like, okay, how am I going to get this guy out or exploit his weaknesses, whether it be with, the fastball, breaking ball, whatever. But yeah, so that was like the biggest thing. And I think that first year, that freshman year, as a team, we struggled a little bit. I forget our actual record. I want to say we might have won about 10 games, but so it was more of a learning experience than anything. But going into the sophomore year, I think that as a staff, for sure, we learned a lot. And now, after being there for a year, you understand how not only the travel and working with your classes and all that stuff, and trying to figure out how the college baseball scene takes place. But I think it's just more of a maturity thing. You learn how to, like, for me, just even in the weight room, right? So I, as a high school junior, senior, I didn't really pick up a weight at all. I mean, I might have been 175 pounds when
you were relatively small when you were there. I'm just going to point it out. You were.
Yeah. So that was a whole new thing, especially for me. Certain guys had different backgrounds of being in the weight room and all that stuff. But for me, I was just like, I'd just show up and play. I didn't really have much of a conditioning or a workout program. So that was huge for me. So that was probably the biggest jump my freshman and sophomore year, was having that off season or that summer to build, not only strength, but, you're kind of learning your body, you're learning how your body's moving, how you can, adapt to certain things and how to keep your arm fresh and all that stuff. So I think that was the biggest thing, the biggest jump from freshman to sophomore year for sure.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with, it's not that when you go to college, you're lifting and everything is there and everything is kind of spaced out for you. And it's just a part, there's time for it, if you will. I feel like a lot of players that come out of high school think that you're playing baseball now and then you have weights and it's going to, the days are going to have more time to do that. And it's not the case. That just gets fit in with a bunch of other things. So I don't think the transition is necessarily, oh my God, we have to lift now. It's more, okay, on top of all the other stuff that I'm used to doing, plus more, we now have to go into the weight room, and like you said, being in there, most guys in high school, you just show up and play. So with the weight room, yes, the weights are important and all that stuff. And I spoke about that before, but I think the biggest thing is being able to manage your time and kind of figuring out what works for you, not necessarily how much weight, but how much stuff you can do in the weight room and then still be able to balance that out with everything else. So I want to go into the Tommy John, you had the year before I got there. Let's just talk about, going through that, it was probably your first arm injury, you haven't pitched. What was it like and what kind of things did you learn, going through that process? Because I know a lot of people kind of struggle with that.
Yeah, it's a big shock, obviously. I had never really had any major injuries up to that point. And it was just like one pitch and just felt it. It was very, very weird and didn't really know the extent of it at the time. Obviously you're thinking of the worst, but after getting the MRI and all that stuff and finally having surgery, at that point it's more of just, the mindset to get through it and try to get better a little bit every day. And the college season is a little different, just for the fact that, I had surgery at the end of the college season in 2011, and then basically, boom, shipped home back to New York. And you're kind of away from, the trainers at school and the staff and everything. So you're more on your own than ever, especially from a training and rehab standpoint. So thankfully, I had a great staff back home that I went to a local PT place and they helped me, gain some strength and mobility back. And you really just learn more about yourself from a mental standpoint than anything. I think that's the biggest thing is mentally being strong enough to get through it. Obviously, like you said, you're in the weight room, you're attacking your rehab program every day, trying to get a little bit better. But it's just that mental grind, knowing that it's going to be at least 12 to 14 months, depending on, if there's any bumps along the road. So that's the biggest thing, is that there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but you just got to go through it and continue just to grind. And I think that mentally you come out on the other side a lot mentally stronger and obviously at the end physically stronger, which is good.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because with Tommy John, kind of unlike everything else, most injuries, ACL 7 months, but there's a chance kind of, you can come back early, or, it's not as bad, or your body responds. The thing with Tommy John, I think that separates it is the second it's torn, and you're told you need to have surgery, you're down for at least 14 months. Like you said, most of the time it takes 18, for everything to fully heal. So I think one of the biggest challenges with that is when it happens, that year and change, you're going to be down. But, like you brought up, as long as you keep grinding, and I did a thing about this the other day, and I did another interview, but we talked about how it's important, I think, just to keep the same goals, and not to kind of lose sight, because although you're going to be out for 18 months, there's still a light at the end of those 18 months, and I think that's important.
Exactly.
And when you came back, like I said, I was your strength coach, and you were fantastic in the weight room, one of the best, and it didn't look like you had any problems at all. So, whatever you're doing in Binghamton really worked well.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So let's go through after LIU. We'll talk about, getting drafted and then the transition into the minor leagues.
Yeah. So drafted in 2013 by the Pirates, ended up signing and went right into short season in Jamestown, New York.
Oh my God.
Interesting little place. Yeah. The old Jammers. So that was in the New York Penn League. So it was awesome. Obviously, getting drafted, it was a goal of mine and a dream of mine for the longest time growing up. Like I said, being a bat boy for the AA Mets, it's kind of you see the lifestyle and you kind of understand the ropes a little bit. But to be able to go through it firsthand, it was an unbelievable experience, and to get that call, being around my family and everybody, and yeah, it was just kind of a dream come true to be drafted. But yeah, you go to a short season, and you were either the best or up there of the best in your conference or the area you're playing in, and then now you're you're mixing with everybody that is even better at that level. And we had guys in that first year team that were 18, and then we had guys that were 26. So it's a big range. Guys that had 2-3 years of pro ball. Some guys like myself right out of the draft. It was a little culture shock. You take that first half season and just get used to showing up to the park every day. Living on your own and feeling out how the organization's run and the goals and the development plan for the organization for yourself. And I think the biggest thing is just to get through that daily grind and figure out okay, 7 o'clock game, got to be at the field at let's just say 1 for throwing, batting practice, all that stuff, and then you're back at your place at 11:30, and then got to have a plan for the next day. Like got to wake up, have a good breakfast, and get ready to go. Do it all again, and it's you got to have a short mindset too. It's like, especially as a reliever. I was a reliever that first year coming out of the bullpen. It was kind of more so like a piggyback role, so I kind of knew when I was going to throw. But yeah, so you never know when you're going to be called upon. That's the biggest thing from college to pro ball. Is like we play 4 games at LIU in a weekend. Well, now you're playing 7 days a week. Like
4 games in 4 days and 4 games. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was more, that first half season was more of just a transitional period. And then, that next year, first spring training, go to low A, and was a reliever and a starter for that whole season. And same thing, you're getting used to that full season grind. Like, you've gone through it. It's July and it's 100 degrees out, and you're 80 games in or whatever, and it's just a grind. And that's what you learn first and foremost in pro ball is if you can handle it, mentally, and have a plan physically, how you're going to recover, all that stuff. The transition's relatively easy.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, that's the biggest thing.
The word grind is I think they should put it in capitals when you get drafted, because
Right.
Being through it as a coaching standpoint and you as a player, that is what it is. I mean, you said it. We played game Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then now you come out and you play 80 games in 80 days or 82 games, and there is no off. Like you said, there is. And if you mess up the day, you miss something, it's gone, and especially I think one of the main things is too, if you start to struggle, with your mechanics, or hitter starts to struggle hitting, like it sputters out of control, and it's July, we started in April, you have a few bad games, and all of a sudden it's July and you're 40 games in. So for everybody out there listening that wants to go into the minor leagues, and everybody looks at it as a thing, it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm not taking it away, but it is a grind. You're a college student, everything is kind of, scheduled for you, and you have time, and when you're going to play, where you're going to go, and then you come in the minor leagues and it's baseball all day, and you're on your own, pretty much. The staff is there to help with the baseball activities and things like that, but you're pretty much a grown up in 5 seconds. It's quite a transition.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
So why don't we go through the starting role? You transitioned into starting with the Pirates, and then we'll go on to the next step after that.
Yeah. So like I said, I was pretty much a piggyback role reliever my first half season, and then that next year in 2014, I was in the rotation to start the year, and I actually was back and forth probably 5 or 6 times maybe between the bullpen and the starter. I think the starting role, you get accustomed to the college way of life, pitching life. At LIU, I was starting on Saturdays, so I kind of knew I had 6 days before I was pitching next. Well, now you're thrown into a 5-man rotation. You're pitching every 5th day. You got a bullpen in between, so you got to get not only mentally ready, but physically. It's goes back to the word grind. I mean, in college, I think I would throw maybe 1 or 2 light bullpens in between my starts, and now you pitch in the game. Let's say you go 5-6 innings, you throw 90 pitches. You got an off day, and then you're in the bullpen, throwing a light bullpen session, 2 days out, and then you're just boom, getting ready to make your start in 3 days. So it was a crazy transition, but it was something that thankfully I was used to from LIU, being a starter. And I like the role. I like the role as a starter. I mean, people always ask me, do you like being a starter or reliever better? I like both of them, but I just wanted to stick to one or the other. So it was difficult for me mentally going back and forth between the bullpen and the rotation that year in 2014. Because, I'd make a start and then they'd be like, hey, you're going to be, let's just say, the long guy out of the bullpen in 3 days. So don't throw your bullpen. Now you're going to throw out of the bullpen in the game. So it's like you get into that comfort zone. You have, your start planned out, your bullpen planned out, and your lift sessions in between that. Now as a reliever, it's like, all right, let's say you throw 2 innings. Yeah, you might have a day off, and then you got to be ready that next day. So it's like you got to take that weight room session, maybe a little lighter depending on how you're feeling and, how the schedule is. If it's, August, you've been going at it for a few months, so you might take it a little lighter than it would be if it was, May or June. But yeah, so it was a good transition. Like I said, it was something I was used to as a starter in college. But I think that at the end of the day, it was more of just like a comfort thing for me, is knowing my role and being able to attack that plan moving forward.
Yeah, you bring up the fact that everything constantly changes, and not that it's right or wrong, but that's something that you have to, be ready for. I mean, when me and you were together at LIU, we had everything, you pitched on Saturday, Mondays or Sundays we were off, Mondays we were hitting legs. We had a schedule that flowed and everything kind of fit together. But then when you go to the minor leagues, you could be a starter, like you said, and then 2 days later go in the pen. And a lot of guys, like I said, I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it, they can't deal with it. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with it. The guy that starts and then they put him as a piggyback and he starts trying to long toss in the bullpen in the second inning and starts foam rolling, in the first, because they're just kind of losing their mind, and I think you bring up a big point. Although it's not ideal, it is things that you can get ready for, or that you have to get ready for. And guys that want to get drafted, you want to be prepared for those things and those challenges. And speaking of challenges, we'll go right into the second injury there. And we'll talk about, I want to talk about how this one was kind of different. How were you feel like you were more mentally prepared? And then we'll just talk about the rehab process through that.
Yeah. So spring training 15, felt really good that off season. Had a good off season and came into spring training feeling excellent, and it just progressively got worse from the time I got to Florida till the end of spring training. But yeah, so it was just more of just like little things. For me, my velo was down just a hair, nothing extremely alarming. But there was times where kind of like my forearm would kind of flare up a little bit here and there. And then it got to the point where it was almost like a dead arm sensation. I was telling one of our pitching coaches, I was like, I literally feel like I'm throwing a piece of paper into the wind and it's just not coming out good. It didn't hurt, but it's just not coming out for some reason. And there was a little bit of forearm tightness. So when you got checked out, and all the training staff there, they thought that it was more of just a flexor strain than anything. And so we get an MRI and it gets read. And about, 4 or 5 days later, we get the results back, fully torn UCL again, and partially torn flexor, possible bone chips. It was like the whole 9 yards. So getting that news, it was tough for me mentally, for sure. Just because I was ready for, first full season in high A as a starter, like that kind of had that role set up in spring training. Like you're going to start for the time being and kind of have that projected role. And then just blown away by the results of the MRI. So that was certainly tough because, I don't know, just going through it once is enough at times. The rehab, you hear how long it is. And like I said, mentally it's a grind. But going into the second one, after, the initial shock wore off of all right, I need the surgery again. Now the second one's probably going to be 14, 18 months. It's, you're tacking on a few months at every step pretty much. So it was like, all right, well, it's got to happen. We're going to get through it and just and keep grinding. And I think I was in a pretty good place rehabbing down in Florida with the staff there. So we're kind of all on the same page, which was good. So that was the initial shock was tough for probably a week or so. And then by the time I got back up to New York and had surgery and got out of there and then got back to Florida, it was like, all right, now it's just pretty much game mode. Let's just get on and get through it and try to get better every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unreal that you went through that twice. Some people go through it once and then, or not at all, and they just hear about it, or, guys worry about it. But I think the most important thing you brought up too is, surrounding, you had your family, you had the staff there, and I think that's the biggest thing is if you have people around you that support you, and that no matter what happens, they'll be there for you, especially, within the organization, that everything is within their best interest and the communication is there. I think that's, important. And I think that's one of the biggest things if you're going to go through an injury or when you're going through an injury, not just in baseball, mm-hmm. but, make sure that you have a plan, but make sure also you have a very good, surrounding support team, if you will, that are all on the same page and understands everything because, injuries happen all the time, but, they're hard to deal with, but they do happen. So it's best to be prepared,
Exactly. Yep.
So let's talk about the transition with the Brewers now. How was it different within the team, and how have you, being a veteran now, how is your game plan kind of changed from first being with the Pirates to now with the Brewers?
Yeah, so I mean, Brewers now my third team I've been with. I was with the Rangers for a year, but yeah, after that second surgery, I think my mindset more or less was like, you know what, I'm going to treat pretty much every day like it's my last. And you find out quick, and maybe I figured it out a little later than some, but the business side of baseball. And after being released by the Pirates, then went and played indie ball for a year, was with the Rangers for a year. And that off season after I was with the Rangers in 2018, that off season was a huge off season for me. The facility I work out in the off season, right outside of Philly, Maple Zone, their staff, we just kind of attacked things. And I was like, you know what, this could be my last shot type thing. I'm a free agent. I don't really want to go play knee ball another year. So we'll kind of see what happens. And we kind of just ran with it. I started doing some weighted ball stuff, and I more or less kind of just scrapped the whole starter mentality. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna two elbow surgeries. Like, who knows how much workload I can handle on the arm. I would like to kind of just go out there for a couple innings and kind of just let it eat and see what happens type thing. And that off season was between, putting on some good weight and then getting stronger and, started doing some weighted ball stuff, plyo care stuff. That stuff really helped clean up some stuff in my mechanics, which I think has overall helped with the arm issues. Knock on wood, I haven't had anything since that second surgery. But yeah, so that was just more the mindset was just, all right, we're going to lock this down, try to be a 1-2 inning guy. And with that mentality and kind of that mentality of like, you know what, this could be my last shot. Let's just take it every day as if it's my last. Velo started to tick up and then, transitioned right to the Brewers. So I signed here last March. Organization's been great. Like I said, this is my third organization, and you certainly see differences between all three, just between player development and how, work days go and all that stuff. But I have nothing but great things to say about the staff here, and everybody's trying to look out for your best interest and put you in a position to succeed. And I think that's the biggest thing as a player. You want honesty on both ends, and because at the end of the day, it's easier to get through it and easier pill to swallow if there's honesty on both sides and you're just out there trying your best every day. Because at the end of the day, if you shouldn't want to look back and be like, oh well, I wish I did this or I wish I did that, and that's kind of just been my mindset since like I said, since the year with the Rangers. Like, you know what, I'm just gonna go out and see what happens and, give it my all. And at the end of the day, if it's not good enough, that's what it is. It's not good enough. And it's easier to deal with it then if you know that you gave it 100%, rather than maybe going through it, either half-assed or maybe not your full effort. It's going to be a lot easier to sleep at night.
Yeah, no regrets. It's You realize that the time could be shorter, it could be over with, something you've been doing for a long time. And you just put everything forward. And I think it's great that you kind of made that jump. And, I will just a second, we'll go back and, all the teams are different. I think that's important for everybody to understand. Everybody doesn't do the same thing. Every organization has their own kind of philosophy and kind of things that they do. I mean, I was with the Mets, but everybody I talk to, everybody does everything differently. And, you brought it up between the Pirates, the Rangers, and the Brewers. Everybody has their own kind of philosophy. And, we talked about the word grind, we constantly bring it up, but that's another thing. Every organization has their own philosophy on lifting, and you don't really get to choose what you want to do. You can't say, well, hey, in college I threw, I had a 0.5 ERA and I was 14-1 and we did this. They're going to be like, yeah, that's great. Here's your packet. This is on you. So I think that's a great thing, to bring up. And also, no regrets. When you play a sport, the time that the watch starts once you start playing. When you're 5 or whatever, and it's going to end at some point. You can't play forever. Golf's
Right.
a little longer, but baseball, basketball, all that stuff, you can't be in there. So I think that's a great realization, and I'm happy that everything kind of worked out. So I just want to go into a little bit. What are some of the things you do with the Brewers in terms of strength conditioning? Do they let you do your own thing and then kind of piggyback it with your stuff? Are they very, kind of receptive of the stuff that you've done?
Yeah, no, they 100% are. The staff here is great. They really like to work with guys and find out what has worked in the past and kind of figure out your injury history and say, okay, what's going to help moving forward. And like I said, when I started working out at Maplezone in the off season, it's got to be 3 or 4 years ago now, or 3 years ago. But the strength coach there, Rob, he did a great job of really specializing programs, and we figured out really quick, or at least I figured out really quick, what how my body was going to react to doing certain lifts, certain days, and all that stuff, and kind of had a pretty solid program during the off season. So when I signed last March, they pretty much were like, hey, like, what have you been doing? What do you like to do? How do you like to treat your arm care? How do you like to treat your total body lift days or your upper body, whatever it was? And they were in great communication. If there was something that between their programs, if I was like, oh, I would like to, switch it out with this or transition it to doing, this exercise, they were great with that. And like I said, here right now, we usually I get my lifts in the day after I throw. So I threw yesterday, I got a lift in today, just a quick total body lift. But yeah, like I said, they do a great job of like specializing, figuring out what each guy needs. Because obviously at the end of the day, none of us are the same. I'm 6'4", 230, and we got a reliever who's a lefty, and let's say he's 5'10". He's going to have a totally different program than what I would need, and vice versa. Same with pitchers and position players. So it's good that they kind of break it down and are very aware of what each guy needs, and kind of personalizes it to their overall needs, and not only for strength side, but just arm care wise, and just general day-to-day going through the work days.
Individualism is a great thing you bring up, and I talked about it in my last podcast, with the one of the people that helped with the NSCA, and we spoke about that. Individuality is the most important thing. Everybody, right. Especially strength coaches, they have a whole team, and they try to write one program for the whole team, or they try to do different, make cookie cutters, if you will. A lot of places, organizations, they try to find the diamond in the rough, or that golden token, if you will, that will help everybody get better. And at the end of the day, like you said, nobody's the same. Everybody's different. Everybody responds differently. I mean, I know when we were together in college, Topa, for everybody doesn't know, we didn't lift 700 pounds. We went through motions. Right. We did movements that he needed. We made sure he got rest. One of the most efficient movers in the weight room, by the way, just so you know, on there, great form on everything. But, we didn't do a bunch of crazy stuff, and I think you were up, 94, 96, somewhere along there when we were in college. And like I said, but at the end of the day, individuality, and I think it's great that the Brewers allow you to do that, because everybody is different. And I think, if you're with a coach and he's giving you something already printed out, or, oh, I did this for this guy, you're in the wrong place. I think it's very important, if you're just starting out with strength conditioning, you're just playing team sports, or you're kind of introduced into it, to make sure that the coach is making a program that's specific for you. And, if you go to a college, make sure that the strength coach is kind of concerned with what you need, not asking you fully what you need, because, freshmen have no clue, but, just to make sure you're involved and say, hey, how does it make you feel? Right. If we deadlifted yesterday and then you threw a pen today and it was terrible, those are the things we have to kind of change. And we always have to make sure as strength coaches that our players are getting the best out of what we're giving them, because at the end of the day, it's all about you guys. It's
Right.
not about my deadlifts and my squats. That didn't make you throw hard. It was the ability of communication and the ability to, kind of make sure that you were ready to go out for every start. So a topic I want to bring up, because it's always in there. How was the off season for you dealing with COVID, and when everything broke kind of in March? What was the change? I just want to, your experience. What are the things that went through your head and kind of coming into the spring training season, with COVID on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been wild. I think it's been a wild thing for everybody. But from the baseball side of it, I at the end of the offseason, right before going to spring training in February, you heard a little bit about it. It was in the news a little bit, but nobody obviously knew the impact that it would be making just on the world in general. And so, yeah, I got to spring training middle of February, and it was pretty much a normal spring training. I was fortunate enough to be backing up a lot of the big league games. So, you kind of got to see firsthand how COVID and that being in the news and how it was slowly starting to affect the sports world. And I remember we were out to dinner when the whole Rudy Gobert thing happened in the NBA and they shut it down. I was like, well, this could be interesting for us here, boys. So yeah, it was literally like, I don't even know, that was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And I remember showing up to the field the next day and they had canceled our game, the Brewers game. And we were just kind of having like a light workout, and I had to throw a bullpen. And I literally went to go through my bullpen and came back to an email that was sent to everybody in the organization. It was like, everything's canceled until Monday. And this was, I think, Thursday night. I was like, okay, well, who knows? Like, they were like, all right, show up on Monday. We're going to have some meetings about, how we're going to handle everything, moving forward. So I was like, all right, well, get back to the hotel, kind of just hanging out. And then we get another meeting that next day at like noon, and it was our flights home. I was like, okay, this is wild. So we get our flights home. They're like, yeah, due to COVID-19, spring training has been canceled. Major League Baseball has announced, so we're sending everybody home. Or if you drove, you could drive home. So it was a quick transition. I was in the crazy thing was that my dad's sister and girlfriend were supposed to fly in that Monday to Arizona for their vacation just to come see me play and get away and stuff. And so I called them. I was like, hey, I got a flight home on Saturday. Like, you guys might want to cancel your flight out to Arizona. So that was a quick change. And I was home and it was like, all right, well, how long is this going to last? Like, nobody knew. Like, we were in conversations with, our pitching coaches and coordinators and stuff and strength staff. And they're like, yeah, like, just stay ready. Like, it could be a couple of weeks, but we have no idea type thing. So, and obviously, I got home and a lot of the places started to close down, whether it be, obviously restaurants and stuff like that, but even like the facility I work out at, they shut down. I think there was statewide shutdown type stuff. So I was like, well, I got to figure out how I'm going to stay in shape here. So thankfully, Trish, my girlfriend, she's a PT. So I was like, hey, is there any extra like dumbbells at the facility that I can borrow? So she ended up taking a few. I think I had like 150-pound dumbbell, 155, and 160-pound dumbbell. And I said the three of those. And I was like, all right, well, I can figure out a leg workout with these. And I had a bunch of bands and stuff. So I was literally just doing like home workouts in our basement. Just trying to figure it out. And then throwing wise, I was still pretty much long tossing and doing stuff. I would go. There was a local park near us that had a couple batting cages, so I would just take a bucket of baseball and just throw into the net and keep my arm ready. And then as it started to progress, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to need to throw bullpens. Like, I can't just go through this just long tosses up,
throwing the balls out of center field.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I ended up building a portable mound for my backyard.
Building a portable mound. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so Trisha's dad, he helped me out, and one weekend I found plans online on Google, and I made.
You should sell those.
I don't. Yeah, it could be a good business, especially now. But so I built one for the backyard, and thankfully, one of Trisha's coworkers knew a high school catcher that lived close by, so he would come by Tuesdays and Fridays and catch some bullpens and stuff like that. And then I pretty much did that for, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months, and just continued to, like I said, throw into the net on, days that he couldn't meet up, and then throwing bullpens twice a week. And then as things started to, come back together, thankfully things started to open up, and I could get into the facility and have more of that true weight room in that facility to work out at. But yeah, it was wild from a from a mental standpoint. It's all right, well, how am I going to figure this out to stay in shape and stay up with conditioning and arm care, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think it turned out well, and knock on wood, I feel good up to today.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you had that, the plan that you came up with, and the dumbbells. And I think the most important thing to take away is you don't need to deadlift 400 pounds to maintain your velo.
Right.
I think the great thing is you've continued throwing. And I think from, my perspective, I think that's the reason why your velo hasn't dipped. And that's why you feel the way you do now, because you've continuously done the things that, you do. You pitch, you throw, you long toss, all the things, all the movement is still there. And right. I think one of the misconceptions in today's kind of world, I guess, with strength conditioning is you need more weights to become better or throw faster or get your velo up, and there's all these things. Oh, if you reverse lunge twice your body weight, you'll throw 90. Well, that's not true, because I could do that in high school and I could throw 40 for you. So, I think that's one of the, a big lesson to take from this is that you continuously do what your skill is and continuously get better, and you don't need weights. Yes, you need weights to move around. I'm not saying, oh yeah, we should just do body weight stuff, but at the end of the day, it's more about, just getting your body to create as much velocity as you can, and you did that with the long toss, and your foot didn't go through the mound you built. So, you had a good.
Right. Yeah. It held up pretty well. And actually, it's just still at the house. I might have to sell it to somebody, or I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. When you end up making your break in a couple weeks, you can sell it. Yeah. Backyard mound. So let's talk about I just want to know your perspective on, I know we talked about it a little bit before the show, how things are now. You're there now, you guys are playing, you're part of the taxi squad. How has that been different for you? And, how is that, do you think that's been a negative or kind of a positive impact in terms of, in comparison to how usually spring training is or the season?
Right. Yeah. So, we're middle of August now, and it certainly is a big change. The minor league season being canceled was tough, just because a lot of guys lose out on the opportunity to continue to play for this year. And unfortunately, I think that there'll be some guys that, careers end due to that, which sucks on that end. But yeah, no, fortunately I was able to be added to the player pool here, and it's a lot different. It's certainly a lot different than your normal season. Usually, like I said earlier, we get to the ballpark at 1:30 and just get ready to get back practicing and get ready for 6 or 6:30, 7 o'clock game, whatever it may be. But here we're literally just we pretty much have a sim game, like an inter squad game every day for the most part. And it could be anywhere between 2 innings and 7 innings. It just depends on who has to throw. But yeah, so like yesterday, I threw in the sim game, and we show up, we get to the field, and every day we have to go through our COVID intake testing. So we get there, we get our temperatures taken, we do a little survey, if you have any symptoms and stuff like that, and then we get tested, actually COVID tested every other day. So we had the COVID test today, and it's like a little vial that you spit into, and it's a wild thing, but it's a little messy at times. But no, it's good. I think from a health standpoint, they're certainly on top of it and trying to keep everybody safe. And obviously we're wearing masks, I would say 95% of the time that we're there, except unless we're on the field. So a normal day looks like, we come in for the intake, and then usually have a stretch an hour and a half after our intake time. So you have about an hour and a half to do whatever you have to do, whether it be, get stretched, get whatever done in the weight room or training room. And then we have just our normal, we'll have a pitcher stretch, go out, we'll throw, we'll have our conditioning. And if we have like a team defense, like PFPs or bunt defenses or anything like that, we'll do that for about a 25-minute, half-hour period. And then they'll roll right into the batting practice and kind of treat it more. Once we get to that on the field stuff, it's very similar to a regular season, right? We get to the field, we play, pitchers throw, hitters take PP, guys are shagging. So that's very normal for a normal season. But then, the sim game, if I'm not throwing that day, I can literally just go up, and if I have to lift, I lift, and then we can kind of just get out of there. They're trying to limit as much interaction, congregating around the stadium as much So you kind of just, you're on your own. Once you're done for the day, you can kind of just head back and just chill here at the hotel, pop the Xbox on, and do whatever. But no, it is different, but you get used to it pretty quick.
Yeah, well, the Xbox is there, so it's just like
Yeah.
regular spring training. For everybody out there
Yeah.
that doesn't know, that's all we do after the thing is over. There's really not much to do. We either play Xbox or talk about Xbox, and
Or play cards all day or something.
yeah, exactly. Not a lot of excitement. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're kind of taking everything into consideration. It seems like they have everything under control. Especially for the number one priority, keep you guys safe. And as far as for you, do you think this has had a positive impact on you? Just the shortened amount of time you have to be on the field and not spending so much time, on the field per day, or would you rather be playing every day?
I mean, I see both sides of it. For me, I think right now, I think it's a good, since there is, it's a weird year, right? There's only going to be a 60-game Major League season. Who knows if we get through all 60, but yeah, I think that it's good for us considering that, we're not hanging around. There's not a lot of downtime. It's like, all right, get in, do what you have to do. You're focused on the task at hand, and you're just trying to make the most of it. Like I said, it's a lot different than obviously being at home and you're having to try to figure out workouts and stuff like that. So that you kind of have more structure and more opportunity to, get in the weight room and do, whatever program you have to do, or, you're on the field and you can get on the mound at pretty much any point if you want to, feel things out. But I think that like we had talked about earlier, the grind of a normal season, you're at the field for 10 hours, 9 hours, like 1 to 11, let's say, so 10
Yeah.
hours about.
And then if you're on a road
Like,
trip, it doesn't end. Yeah.
well, yeah, then you got to get on a bus for 8 hours. Yeah. So that is certainly a lot nicer. And I think
How I miss all of that.
yeah, I certainly don't right now. But no, I think from a physical standpoint, I think guys are certainly feeling better. You get a lot more recovery out of it. Like I said, you don't have to be jam packed on a bus for 6, 8, 10 hours, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think that it's certainly been positive. A lot of opportunity here, and it's a weird season, so pretty much anything can happen in like a drop of a hat. Look at the Cardinals. You have 18 players and staff that test positive for COVID, and then on top of that, guys were getting hurt just due to the fact of having that long layoff and then getting ramped back up, and then little things come up, and you want to be more cautious than anything, especially in a short season. But yeah, I think it's been a great opportunity, and certainly looking forward to see how it continues. And we got about another month and a half or so. So who knows what will happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that, being in the minor leagues, and that was one of the things, with everybody I've talked to, it's, that volume of stuff and the amount of stuff you do every day is now consistently cut in half. But I'm happy to see it's a positive for everybody. And I think that's going to be, I think the season's going to be better, personally, for my opinion, just being around it, because guys have more time now to kind of, understand themselves and not be at the field for so long. But,
Exactly.
Glad that you're having a positive experience there. Like I said, I think that's pretty much it for everything. Tope, I appreciate you being here, man. I really thank you for taking the time, and hope to see you making that start in the near future.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It was good catching up, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Of course, man. Anytime.
Awesome. I appreciate it.